Hello and welcome to Pitt Street Research. My name is Stuart Roberts and I'm one of the co-founders of our firm. And joining me on the morning of Monday, the 25th of November 2024 from Perth is Mr. Nigel Broomer, who's the CEO of Battery Age Minerals ASX BM8. Nigel, good morning to you.
Good morning, Stuart.
So, Nigel, this is a real privilege. Pilgangoora lithium mine has created millions upon millions in shareholder value. And I'm talking to the guy who basically built that resource from nothing much into a serious contender for greatness in the lithium space.
Look, Stuart, there might be a bit of a stretch to claim that far, but it was certainly part of certainly part of that amazing story, and what a privilege it was.
Right. Before we come to Battery Age, let's just talk about your background. Obviously, studied geology at UWA, then got out in the field. When the Pilbara Minerals people were putting what became Pilgangoora together, they recruited you to head up the geological effort. Talk to us about that.
Yes, correct. Yeah, so I've been involved in sort of the battery metals side for a relatively long time when compared to the infancy of the lithium story. And before Pilgangoora, actually, I was involved at Mineral Resources lithium sites at Mount Marion and Wodgina, and went across to the Pilbara Minerals team in the start of 2017 to be part of that exploration team and sort of lead that team from exploration through to production and beyond. And plenty of learnings, plenty of success, and it was an amazing opportunity and one that I hold very dearly.
Right. Moving on from that, Battery Age Minerals is a considerably smaller company than Pilbara Minerals. We've had various assets around the world, including the Falcon Lake project in Canada. But the big potential company maker right now is Bleiburg in Austria. Talk to us about how Bleiburg ended up in Battery Age Minerals.
Yeah, it was part of one of our projects that we listed with in the 2nd of February last year. And obviously last year, the immediate focus was on our lithium asset in Ontario for obvious reasons, and we've had some really good success there. But all the while in the background, we continue to progress the project at Bleiburg in Austria. So it's a really fascinating area, one with a rich mining history. So the area was in fact mined for over 700 years from 1336 into the early 90s when it closed due to declining zinc and lead pricing at the time. But we actually became originally interested in it, not for the zinc and lead, but actually for the germanium and gallium potential of this asset. And in fact, at the time of its closure, it was one of the largest producers of germanium globally. We essentially had conducted a search, been looking for assets which have the critical or strategic minerals that are on everyone's critical minerals list, the US, EU, Japan, India, Australia. And this project in particularly ticked across that for all of those lists for germanium and gallium. So we became incredibly interested and motivated to move on it.
Right. Now, what's interesting is the literature that's available on Bleiburg. So as you say, when you've been mining something for 700 years, someone's going to write about it in a serious peer-reviewed journal. So in this case, there's a number of professionals who've worked at this mine who believe there are millions of tons of metal still in the ground that was never exploited, either because the pricing environment wasn't right, or the operator was a state-owned company who weren't really thinking long-term, or there are other reasons as well. But you've taken a look at the literature since it came into your aegis, and it's fair to say you agree with them. There's a heck of a lot of metal that have never been explored before.
Yeah, absolutely, Stuart. So, in fact, we've had the pleasure of meeting a few of these gentlemen as well who've written this literature, and they're incredibly optimistic of what's remaining in the ground there. So, yeah, we negotiated access to over 100 years of old mining and exploration records, and we put them together, digitise them, georeference them, and model them. And that's been incredibly important to define our exploration strategy and fast track the definition of targets, etc. And you're correct. There was no need for the people who used to operate the mine under the old state mining company to define resources in front of them, etc. So they did that all in-house, and they had enough in front of them as they progressed. But the feeling is, and the literature does suggest, that there is a heck of a lot of metal units remaining in those hills, and we're looking to define that.
Right. Now, this is a lead zinc mine, obviously. but the germanium runs at a pretty high grade. And when you're dealing with Mississippi Valley style deposits, you get a lot of lead and zinc. And if you throw that in with high grades of germanium, this potentially could be quite valuable in the current pricing environment. What's your sense of where you can take this in terms of building out lead, zinc, and germanium, and potentially gallium as well?
Oh, it could be huge, Stuart. It could be absolutely huge. From our research, we can't see a high grade germanium potential deposit globally, not with these grades. So we're talking, 200 ppm and above. There's some evidence of much higher than that. Obviously, we must note that obviously this old data set, none of that is compliant, but we are utilising that for a reference point. So there's a huge amount of potential within this asset, and it could potentially be a company maker, and we need to get out there and do the work. But where it's positioned within Europe, we think there's a real need for these strategic metals outside of a China-controlled area, and we're looking to capitalise on that.
Absolutely. We're having this conversation about a month before Christmas 2024. Now, in August of this year, China brought in some interesting export restrictions on germanium. Why is everyone worried about future supplies of germanium?
Yeah, that's correct. So China have brought in some sanctions there. They completely dominate the space for germanium, and since then we've seen the prices absolutely skyrocket. So it's sort of been a bit of a back and forth with the US and China. Everyone's fairly aware of the geopolitical tension or rift that continues to grow there. And with any of these future-facing commodities, there's always a discussion between the advancement of the technology and where the raw product is sourced from. And with China dominating that space, and also with the Taiwanese semiconductor manufacturing company putting out increasing forecasts with the amount of germanium that they're going to use within their chips, and also the applications of which, we've seen the price skyrocket in the past few months up to, I think, 18,500 Chinese yen per kilo. So that equates to $2,700 US a kilo. So incredibly valuable stuff, and we believe we've got potentially a very high grade source of that.
And to your point, the European Union in particular have become concerned about self-sustainability in the critical mineral space, which includes germanium. Here's Austria as a card-carrying member of the European Union, and you're sitting on a pretty valuable asset right in the middle of the Union, and close to potential customers as well, I suspect.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, right there in Europe, right there in Central Europe, just across the border from Italy as well. It just so happens to be that there's another company, Infineon Technologies, who are one of the largest semiconductor manufacturing companies in Europe, and their largest production plant is 15 kilometres to the east of the Bleiburg project. So we think there's a very obvious conversation to be had there. And I think it's an absolute no-brainer that these companies would like to have a sustainable and locally sourced raw supply for this material.
Right. Now, there's a lot of stuff to do between now and when Infineon can actually start bringing in germanium from the nearby plant.
Yes.
You've just completed the process of digitizing 100 years worth of data.
Yep.
And that then leads to an exploration program to begin the process of proving up a resource to JORC 2012 standards. What's the work program for the next year or so? And if we're having this conversation in Christmas 2025, what do you hope to have achieved?
Yeah, absolutely, Stuart. As mentioned, I'm a geologist and understand what needs to occur, and the foundations of any good project is a sound and compliant resource, and that's what we need to move towards. So we have all the data collected now to go into our maiden drilling application. Been in regular communication with the local communities, mayor's offices, and also the mining authority, and we've established some really good terms there. So we'll have this put together and submitted before the end of calendar year, so within the next few weeks. Then we look to be all approved and ready to go to drill that in the European spring and summer next year. We'll get out there, drill some holes, and then hopefully drill more and more and more, and move towards a maiden resource, and that's the focus.
Right. Now, for the folks who know their European geography, let's sketch it out here. We're in the state of Carinthia, which is kind of the middle part of Austria. Go due south from Salzburg, close to the Italian border. You're there. But importantly, as I like to tell people, Austria is a mining-friendly country. When you've been mining since the Middle Ages, it's built into your DNA. And it's fair to say the regulatory environment is fairly straightforward for you.
Yeah, that's correct. So there's probably a sentiment which stems from just a miseducation that it's hard or difficult to explore in Austria, and that's simply not the case and not what we found. So as long as you do the work and you abide by the regulations, just the same as Western Australia or Canada or elsewhere in mining friendly jurisdictions, then there is no problem at all, and we don't see any problem or hurdles going about our business here.
Right. Let's touch briefly. Now, we realize this is not exactly top of mind at the moment, but you've got a very valuable project in Falcon Lake. And what impresses me there is it's the province of Ontario in Canada. A lot of people, when they were staking out lithium plays, were doing it in James Bay, so far north from civilization, it's not funny. You were in the southern part of Ontario, more or less close to Thunder Bay. So potentially, if this project goes anywhere, you've got a valuable lithium resource that can feed straight into the gigafactories that are showing up both sides of the US-Canadian border.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, some people are calling that the electric highway or electric avenue. I think there's been over $100 billion from the automakers have been invested in just that little section there between Detroit and Windsor. So we couldn't think of a better place to be located geographically to capitalise on this when that entire supply chain is built out, and we're incredibly bullish of that area. So yes, as you mentioned, located in Ontario there, all-weather road access, about 10 or 15 kilometres off the Trans-Canadian Railway line, which runs straight down to Detroit, Windsor, access to a deep water port town of Thunder Bay. We couldn't be better placed to capitalise on a buoyant lithium market and the emerging lithium supply chain when that's built out. We believe the work we've conducted there to date has been exceptional. The results that we put out have been exceptional, and
the grades were fantastic. You were consistently getting well north of 1% every time you put a drill hole down in that project.
Yeah, and look, we've got some more results to come out. Obviously, the amount we've invested into the project this year has been less than the year before as a result of market conditions. But we believe this project is really well placed and in a really good in state to pick it up when the market does turn again.
Right. But coming back to the big company maker, potentially one of the new sources of germanium that the European world and European Union, and by extension the world outside of China is looking for. And by European summer, you'll be putting down the first drill holes to explore just how much germanium plus lead and zinc you're sitting on.
Yeah, that's correct, Stuart. Being sort of a first mover in the space is a challenge, but it also comes with a huge amount of upside. And if we have the ability to get good results and communicate that clearly to the market and sort of establish a value on that or a potential value, then I think we're off to the races. So really excited to keep cracking on.
Well, Nigel Bruner, more muscle than coming out of Austria than Arnold Schwarzenegger at the moment. I'm very excited.
Thanks, Stuart. Been a pleasure, mate.
Thanks for joining Pitt Street Research.